Today we're going to be taking a look at some interesting speedrun mysteries that have occurred. I tried to find some interesting examples of a speedrunner accidentally discovering a glitch that has potential in a speedrun but was never figured out or recreated. Hope you enjoy. So I've put this one first because it is actually the reason I had the idea for this video in the first place, as it happened to me a few weeks ago while I was doing some speedruns of Tomb Raider Angel of Darkness. At the start of the run, we go out of bounds to this unused area and perform a side flip into an invisible wall which activates a hidden trigger to end the level. However, randomly in this occurrence, as I hit the trigger, something happened that messed with the audio and told the game not to load any audio for cutscenes. Now that might seem like it has no use for speedrunning, as we just skip the cutscenes anyway. However, there are two unskippable sections of the run where you have to talk to an NPC, but due to the broken audio it didn't load any of the voice lines and just skipped through them all really quickly, which if consistently recreated could potentially save up to 2 minutes off of a 20-minute run. We looked back at the footage and it can be seen that I do absolutely nothing differently to how I normally would, the same angle and the same inputs are used, and thus we were totally unable to recreate the glitch and it hadn't been seen before this occurrence either. And so nothing has come of it, but I did think that it'd be interesting to see some more famous examples of this occurring, so this video idea popped into my head, so at least we got something out of it. AGDQ 2017 saw Scavenger 216 and Shining Dragoon compete in an any percent warpless race of Blaster Master. Around 5 minutes in, Dragoon was ahead by around 20 seconds as he enters this boss fight. Then, just as he finishes the boss fight and picks up this item, Scavenger enters the same fight, only to find that there is no boss waiting for him, but instead the item is just sat there ready for him to pick up. This saved around 20 seconds and brought the race back to almost level pegging, while the runners and couch sat stunned for a few seconds. This was quickly investigated by some task runners who did manage to figure out exactly what game memory ranges had to be changed for this glitch to occur. However, what actually caused the memory ranges to change is still a mystery. One task runner even recreated the entire of Scavenger's run frame by frame up until the boss fight and it still didn't recreate it. I spoke to Scavenger and he reckons it's most likely to either be some sort of random hardware failure due to the AGDQ stage consoles being relatively old and gone through some pretty heavy usage, or it was a bad connection between the cart and the system, as apparently they were using a converter to allow the 60-pin Japanese cart to work on the 72-pin NES slots. Either way, there has been no sight of the glitch since.
Whoa. The boss wasn't even there, and Scav just gets the item.
Okay.
Whoa.
That's never happened before.
Out of bounds tricks are extremely common among the majority of speed games, with most major speed games utilising them in their any percent routes. Goldeneye is one of the most famous speed games out there, due to its ability to time individual levels in-game, and with Goldeneye being over 20 years old, you would imagine that by now an out of bounds trick would have been found and used somewhere across its 20 levels. But this simply isn't the case. A lot of Goldeneye speedruns come down purely to optimise movement, aim, and use of features such as damage boosts. There had never been an out-of-bounds trick discovered in the game at all, let alone one that could be used in a speedrun, until late 2014, when Dan Parker, also known as Swiss, was doing some runs on Train, when randomly he just clipped out the train. He didn't really know what to do, so he just moped around for a bit, only to discover that due to Goldeneye's loading system, which only loads the room you're in, there really wasn't much he could do but just walk around in the void. Task runners couldn't even recreate it, and were only able to get out of bounds by hacking out of the level to see if they could use it for anything useful. One task guy, called Henrik, was able to figure out the correct path to get to the end of the level, which does actually activate the trigger that ends the level. However, for Objective C, you have to shoot the lock off a door near the end of the level, and so it wouldn't be useful in a speedrun. Either way, it has never been recreated without some sort of hack to get out of bounds, until once again in 2017, when Gus Riolo was doing runs on Silo. He got blocked by some guards halfway through and went to exit the level, but accidentally pressed R to aim, which seemed to halt the pause process for just a moment, and he ended up out of bounds. As with the train video, only the room he was in was loaded, and despite it looking like it had something to do with aiming and pausing in such a way, it has never been recreated. I was speaking to well-known Goldeneye speedrunner and YouTuber Our White Goose, who informed me that he had spoken to one of the developers of the game, Dr. Doe. Apparently, there are some small seams in the rendering that aren't aligned 100% perfectly, and you can sometimes squeeze yourself through them, which could theoretically mean you could come back into the normal play area through the same method. However, the understanding and knowledge for how these out of bounds tricks could work, or even be used in a speedrunning capacity, just simply isn't available, and it hasn't been witnessed since. In March 2019, Luke Skyspacer began some Ocarina of Time 100% speedrun practice runs using save file 2 on his console. He got the bottle in Child 1, caught bugs, saved, and then reset his console, which is used to teleport back to Kokiri Forest. However, as he went to load back into the save file, he accidentally loaded into save file 1, where he had a different save file as Adult Link in the Temple of Time. Realizing that he loaded into the wrong save, he exited out and goes to load back into save file 2, which is where the strange stuff starts to happen. Despite saving the game after getting the bottle as Child Link, he is put into the opening cutscene of the game as Adult Link. It was at this point that Luke started recording, realizing that something was up. After the cutscene finishes, he opens his inventory to see that it is totally empty. No bottle or anything that he collected in his save file, just the Master Sword, which the game gives you automatically upon loading into any Adult Link save file. Bewildered, he exits out and loads save 2 again, and once again we see that the opening cutscene with Adult Link is playing. He decides he doesn't need to watch it all again and exits out, and decides now to try and retrace his steps due to having started recording after it had happened. So he loads into save 1, exits out and goes back into save 2, except this time the intro cutscene doesn't play at all. Instead it just jumps straight into the game, which seems to suggest that launching save 1 somehow messed with the save 2 file again. Now, he just runs about a bit, exploring Kokiri Forest, which is set out as it should be for a save file as Adult Link, except for the fact that it's set at night time, whereas a normal save file right after the intro cutscene would be at noon. Other than this, nothing else strange happens. Now, this could have some opportunities for use in a speedrun. If they could figure out a glitch to switch between adult and child, it could open the door for some new faster strats. But with the recent discovery of arbitrary code execution, or ACE, it probably wouldn't be as relevant now. But whether it could be useful or not much was really discovered about it, with the possibility of a dodgy game cart again being the only potential explanation. However, apparently Luke hasn't had any other problems before or after relating to the cart, and thus it remains a mystery.
Okay, I did just tap the cartridge. That was interesting. Slightly terrifying.
So just briefly before we look at the most famous example of a speedrun mystery, I just wanted to say that I'm extremely thankful for the support I've had on the channel recently. We've almost hit 2k subscribers, which is crazy to me, and I'm really enjoying making these sorts of videos, and I'm going to try and do them maybe a little bit more consistently. So if you wouldn't mind subscribing, that would be pretty epic. I saved this one to last as it is easily the most famous speedrun mystery to have occurred to date, currently sitting at 1.6 million views on YouTube. In 2015, Dota Teabag and Mid Boss were racing each other on Super Mario 64, when suddenly Teabag teleported to the top of the room. Penen is the guy who uploaded the video, in which he states that while downwarps are highly common in SM64, there is only one known method of upwarping. If there is a grabbable ceiling in the level, jumping into the corner of a lower adjacent ceiling will warp you up to it. However, in Teabag's instance, the room has no grabbable ceiling and he isn't jumping, he's landing. So none of the known upwarp requirements are in play here. Penen was eventually able to recreate the glitch by changing one byte of memory. However, no explanation has ever been found as to why or how this byte of memory could have changed in the first place, and Penen is so determined to find answers that he has set a $1,000 bounty for the first person to submit an emulator playback file to him where the glitch occurs naturally. This way, him and some other runners would be able to take a look at the file and figure out just where that byte of memory changes and what caused it to happen. However, 5 years later and this bounty still hasn't been claimed.
Oh dear. What the? What the?
Did you get invisible walls?
What?
Please say you got invisible.
No, that was the craziest thing I've ever seen though.